Do you love and use open source software every day and you really want to contribute something upstream but you get confused by the process and how to do it? In this video we're going to look at how easy it is to submit fixes and features to upstream projects using GitHub. So let's get into it. So if we think back to the early 90s, the software market was completely different. It was mostly made up of large corporations selling big, expensive, bloated products. But since then, over the years, the concept of open source software has completely exploded. Most of the internet runs on open source software these days. Almost every single website that you look at is running on open source software. And the main reason that open source has grown the way that it has is because collaboration between developers has improved. So version control systems like Git enable many developers to work on a single code base. So while version control did help to allow many developers to work on a single project, it was still a very complicated task for users to be able to contribute bug fixes and features to the upstream project. It normally involved taking a patch file and emailing that directly to the inbox of the developer, and then the developer would review that and manually merge that change into the code base. And that was quite a high barrier for a lot of people. And also not easy for maintainers to be able to keep track of many requests coming in. So this was a problem, as the most successful open source projects out there are successful because of their contributors, because of the amount of people who contribute quality code into the project. So these manual processes were creating quite a bottleneck. So sites like GitHub were built to solve this problem. So GitHub is built on top of the core Git platform, but it provides a set of tooling and interfaces to allow collaboration between contributors and maintainers. So it allows contributors to easily submit their fixes to the upstream via a graphical user interface, and maintainers to easily review and comment and suggest changes to those proposals. So these days, submitting bug fixes and features to your favorite upstream projects has never been easier. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. So let's dive right in. So the first thing we're going to do is select the project that we want to contribute to. This can be any of your favorite upstream projects. I'm going to submit a change to a project that I actually maintain, because then I can show you the other side of it, how the maintainers see it. So this will be the same for any project. So here I'm on the GitHub landing page for a project called Puppet Jerakia, which is a Puppet module that I maintain. So here on the top left, where we see the name of the repo, to the left of that we have the namespace or the user that this project belongs to. So even if you don't have any repositories on GitHub, just by having an account you have your own namespace. So to submit changes to this project, we don't do it directly in the upstream's namespace. What we do is we create a copy of this repository into our own namespace and work on it from there. And that's a process known as forking. So if I look over here on the right of my screen, at the very top right here, I have a button called Fork, and if I click that, I'm in multiple GitHub organizations, so it's asking me where I want to fork it to, but I want to fork it to my own personal namespace, which is CrayfishX here, and I click on that. And now GitHub has created a fork of the upstream. So I can see here on the top left that the Puppet Jerakia repository now lives in the CrayfishX namespace, so my personal namespace. And we can see down here it's still tracking this. It's telling me that it's forked from the upstream Jerakia. Anything I do in this repository won't affect anything because it exists in my namespace. It's just a copy of the upstream. So now what I need to do is I need to clone this repository onto my local system in order to make some changes. So if I click here on the code button and pull that down, I can see that I can clone this with HTTPS. I'm going to use SSH because I want to push changes back. I can click here to copy the SSH URL of this repo, and that's now copied to my clipboard. So if I now flip over to my terminal screen, I can clone this repository using git clone and then the URL that I've copied to the clipboard here. Again, take note that we are cloning the repository from my personal namespace, not from the upstream project. So I can go into my cloned repository and see the files in here. A good best practice here, if I look at what branch I'm on at the moment, I'm currently on the master branch. While not essential, good practice here would be to create a feature branch for the change that I'm making. So I'm going to do git checkout -b to create a new branch. And the change that I'm making is just a small fix to the README. So I'm just going to go README bug fix. And now in this branch, I'm going to make my change. So Again, the actual change I'm making is unimportant. We're just showing the process here. This could be any programming language. This could be any project. And once I'm done with that, I can commit the changes. And now my local clone of the upstream now has repository now has my changes. So now I've managed to clone the upstream project, perform a bug fix, and commit that locally. And so the next step now is to take my change and submit that to the upstream repo in the hopes that it can get merged into the project. So just to remind you, so the branch I'm working on is called readme bug fix. And the remote Git repository that I'm going to push to is crayfishx, so it's my personal namespace. So let's do that now. So I'll git push to the origin, and then the name of the branch, which is readme bug fix. So here when I go back to GitHub, looking at the Puppet Jerakia repo in my own namespace, we can see that GitHub's already detected that I've pushed a branch up, and it's suggesting that I compare and make a pull request. If this alert doesn't come up because you've pushed a branch some time ago, then you can also go down here to pull request. So I'll just do that. So here I've got my crayfishx Puppet Jerakia on the right, and it's suggesting a merge into the Puppet Jerakia that lives in the Jerakia namespace, so the upstream. So here on the right, I need to select my topic branch that I want to merge into the upstream. So if I click down on that, I can search for this readme bug fix, which is the branch that we created just now. So now we see there are changes between my feature branch and the master branch of the upstream. And here we can see what those changes are on a diff. So if I'm happy with that, I can click here to create a pull request. And when I create a pull request, I get the opportunity to give it a heading and a description. Some larger projects have some protocols and processes that you need to go through in writing your descriptions. It's always a good idea to look for a file called contributing, which will have any special instructions. But for most small projects or anything that doesn't have a contributors file, then try and make the title meaningful and give it some depth in the description. Don't forget, a maintainer needs to be able to look at this pull request. They might have several to go through. And the more detail that you put into this, the easier it is for them to be able to understand your changes, why you're making them, and assess whether or not to merge it. I'm not going to get too wordy. And then if you're happy with that, you've done your description, you've got your heading, you can click here to create a pull request. So from a contributor's point of view, that's it. We've made a fix in our namespace, we've pushed it up to GitHub, and then we've created a pull request to ask that this change gets merged into the upstream. So let's have a quick look at the other side of the coin, how this looks from the maintainer's point of view, and how your change will eventually get merged into the project. So from a maintainer's point of view, if we look at the front page of the project, we can see here at the top we have pull requests, and I can see a couple in here, one of which is what I've just done now. So a maintainer will typically open these up. Here on the top, the maintainer can look at the commits that you've got. They can see the actual changes side by side. If they have any suggestions or things that they want you to change, they can leave a comment here. But if everything looks good with your change, then typically here they can merge the pull request. And now your change has been successfully integrated into the upstream code base ready for release. And if we go to the front page again of the project, again we're looking at the project in the upstream namespace. I can see here that the last commit into the master branch was 15 seconds ago from crayfishx, so from myself. So there you go, it's as easy as that to submit bug fixes and features to your favorite open source projects. So I hope this has been useful. If it has, then please smash the like button. And if you want more content like this around this type of technology, then please subscribe to the channel because I've got loads more coming out in the next few weeks. Until then, hasta pronto.